Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. No guest this week. You were the guest. We did this once before, several weeks ago. We did a mailbag. You guys sent in the questions. I addressed them, and we're going to do that again this week. Questions this week were even better than the first time around. I enjoyed the batch of questions that came in this week. So these are all user-submitted questions from Twitter and Instagram. And Sal will be here after I get through answering all your questions. So it's an all-Mailbag Traina Thoughts, and then Sal Licata. No, all-Mailbag SI Media podcast, and then Traina Thoughts with Sal Licata. And before I get to your questions, if you missed it last week, we had Richard Jefferson on the show. First time calling the NBA Finals for Richard. So we got into that and some other stuff. Andrew Marchand 2 weeks ago, Tony Reale 3 weeks ago, Chris Berman, John Tesh. If you missed any of those interviews here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina, go into the archives, check them out, and subscribe to the podcast. Really helps if you subscribe. All right. A lot of questions came in here about the NBA Finals and the NBA overall, so let's get to it. First question here for this mailbag edition of SI Media with Jimmy Traina comes from Kevin Manning on Twitter. Thoughts on the 2 to 3 day breaks between games of the NBA and NHL Finals? This podcast is coming out on Thursday. In Wednesday's Traina Thoughts column, I talked about how this week was a real disaster for the NBA. Game one rating was 8.9 million viewers, lowest rated game one of all time outside of the COVID years over there, 2020, 2021, whenever those were. And then I thought, with the Pacers winning game one and a chance for an historic upset in the series, because the Thunder were minus 750. You don't get NBA Finals where a team is minus 50, but the Thunder were minus 750. The Pacers go in there. They win game one on the Halliburton shot with 0.3 left. I thought maybe there would be a little momentum for Sunday night in game two. Instead, the game was completely unwatchable. The Thunder blow them out, and then that rating comes in lower than game one at 8.7 million viewers. And I think, lowest rating in since God only knows how long, outside of the COVID and the bubble stuff. So everyone knew going in the small markets would be a problem. And it was a weird backlash on Twitter. If anyone pointed out the small markets, I got it too. Oh, just enjoy the finals. Oh, I'm not going to enjoy the finals because it's going to get a low rating. Okay, but number one, this is what I cover. Number two, there is a business aspect to this. So it was significant that you had an NBA Finals, not just with teams in bad markets and teams that are not legendary teams, a la the Lakers, the Celtics, etc. You didn't have LeBron and you didn't have Steph Curry. And those are guys who bring in the fringe viewer. There is not one fringe viewer coming to the set for these two teams, or the players in these two teams. But I really did think, with the Pacers stealing game one, and now you think, okay, they were a heavy underdog. They can make a series out of it. Let's see what happens. And then game two had a lower rating than game one. So getting back to the question, now you have the bad ratings, and the schedule is ridiculous. That they played Sunday and there's no game until Wednesday. This will come out on Thursday, so game 3's already been played. But I know that I thought game 3 was on Tuesday until I think I heard Mad Dog ranting about it on his show in the middle of the afternoon. At 6:30, I get a text from my buddy Andy Gray. I just realized the game's tomorrow. I thought the game was tonight. I get a text from my other buddy Diesel on Wednesday morning. I was so excited at work last night to watch game 3 at 8:30 at on ABC, and it's Wheel of Fortune. So, and then I put it on Twitter, and I got a whole bunch of responses from people who thought the game was on Tuesday. So there's no momentum for the series. The layoffs are a problem. I think what's even a bigger problem is that they're going to a Friday, Monday schedule here after game 3. Games 4 and 5 are Friday, Monday. Friday is the worst night to be on TV. I mean, Friday is just horrible. They need to get back to a Thursday, Sunday situation. The finals should be Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, game 7, Tuesday. That's what the NBA finals should be, but they want to drag it out. So I don't know what the NHL schedule is. I apologize. I'm not paying attention to the NHL finals. So I don't know what their schedule is, but the NBA one is ridiculous and it should be fixed. But I guess today's player needs extra days off and the NBA wants to give it to him. I don't know why you would want to stretch this out. It makes no sense to me. There's no momentum. So there you go. All right. This comes from CS. I'm going to say this. Let me see. CS. Oh, I see. C. Scarch. That's the name. C. Scarch. Finals court logo. Feel that this has been a big one. Allegedly, the decal caused slipping issues in prior years. So now we sometimes get a TV graphic in the era of so many court designs. Do you think the NBA could figure this out? It's so bizarre that this ended up being this big story, but game one comes along. The Thunder court looks the same as it does for any game. There's all this backlash on Twitter. Even J.J. Watt had tweeted, we need the Larry O'Brien trophy back on center court. We need the script writing that says NBA Finals that we've seen for so many years. And then I guess the NBA saw the social media backlash on this, when you think about it, very insignificant topic. But for some reason, this is what the NBA decided to pay attention to. And, let's not worry about load management and players skipping back-to-back games. We're going to worry about the court. But the NBA worried about the court to the point where they told ESPN to superimpose a CGI graphic of the Larry O'Brien trophy on each side of the court, and it looked ridiculous. And then that brought on all this ridicule. And, the guy who submitted this question, who I botched his name and I apologize, C. Scarch, he said it right. It has become a big one. It was a big story for game two, which is ridiculous when you think about what we're talking about. But I don't know how anyone at ESPN saw the CGI and thought, oh, this looks good. I mean, it looks so Bush League. And this is what the NBA is worried about, telling ESPN to put the trophy on the court. So you would think the NBA could figure this out, but clearly not. All right. Sar McLean on Twitter. I know they've been facing a lot of criticism around the ESPN NBA Finals broadcast. One of the most perplexing aspects is the decision not to show the national anthem. Do you have any insight? It just makes the game feel, way less important. I don't know if I want to go here. I'll just say this because I've said this for years. I don't understand why the national anthem is played at any sporting event. I know some people now just flipped out and they're going crazy. But this is what I always say when I have this discussion with people, and I can never get an answer. I just ask one question. If you have the answer, let me know. Outside of tradition, besides that, I need a reason why the anthem is played at a sporting event. Why isn't it played before the movie starts when you go to the movies? Why isn't it played before a Broadway show starts? Why isn't it played at a restaurant before you get your meal? I don't understand why the national anthem is played at sporting events to begin with. Now, again, you probably say tradition. That to me is not a reason. So I don't know why they have to play it at all. Then people get all worked up and they get all bent out of shape about the anthem's not on TV. The NFL does not show the anthem on TV until I think the AFC and NFC championship game. Maybe for the divisional round it starts, but there is not one regular season game in the NFL where they show the national anthem. They don't show them in the regular season in any other sport. So I guess now fans are trained that when it's the finals, you need to see the anthem. What I need to see is the intros. I would like to see the player intros. When you think about those NBC days with the Bulls and Michael Jordan and those intros, even, and as a Knick fan, Patrick Ewing getting introduced, the Garden rocking, there'd be a little video montage before. I don't care about them not showing the anthem. I need to see the intros. That's my bigger beef. You want to show the anthem because, you have some big singer. Okay, fine. But, I don't associate like it's the NBA Finals. I need to see the national anthem. Maybe other people feel differently, and I'm sure I've probably offended someone out there. But again, if you know why they play the anthem at sporting events and nowhere else, let me know. And I know tradition, but outside of that. All right. Quaker 2001. How concerned is the NBA about the ratings for the finals? Way down because of small markets, but they're about to enter a new 11-year deal where a ton of cash will be flowing for the league. I would assume the NBA doesn't love the low rating, but like Quaker said here, they just signed an 11-year deal. So it's not like the low rating is going to cost them any money. It's going to cost ESPN some money maybe, but the NBA itself, listen, from a pride standpoint, from a league standpoint, a lot of people I think of the NBA as the second biggest sport, or maybe third. You count college football in there. If You're going it by league. Uh, but the World Series is going to have a better rating than the NBA Finals. So I think the NBA cares about it from that standpoint. But the NBA is not trying to sign a new, if their contracts with the networks were up, maybe they'd be concerned. But the NBA has an 11-year deal now with Amazon, NBC, and ESPN beginning next year. So deep down, they probably don't care that the rating is that big because they just got their deal. ESPN, on the other hand, I am sure cares. And even more than the low rating, I think ESPN probably cares more about the fact that their coverage is getting bashed. The whole thing with like I said, with the trophy on the court, there's report, the day the finals start, Andrew Marchand has a report that Doris Burke might not be back. They're on another new crew with Doris and Richard Jefferson, who was on the show last year. JJ Redick with Doris and Breen. Of course, that was after they fired Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. So I think ESPN, in their pregame show, now they've got all this stuff going on with Inside the NBA, so maybe that'll help them next year. But I would think ESPN is way more concerned than the NBA. The NBA already has their money. ESPN's getting nothing but really negative coverage for their coverage of the NBA Finals. All right, moving on here. Outside of the NBA, we've got Jay Broska, 55. Will the NFL Network figure out how to bring back continuity for Good Morning Football when the NFL season starts? They already replaced Akbar with Manti, but there's no ruling on Schrager's replacement. Kyle Brandt doing the show remote makes it really hard to build chemistry. To me, this is old news. The NFL and NFL media, I should say, in NFL Network, they put the fork in Good Morning Football when they moved the show from New York to LA. That and they showed by doing that they don't really care who the cast is. The NFL Network, NFL media, they believe that it's not about the people on that show, it's just about the show, and that they could put anybody on the show and it's fine. Obviously, that's a ridiculous stance. They had something really good there with, listen, when the show first started, it was phenomenal with Kay Adams, Nate Burleson, Peter, and Kyle. The first one to leave was Nate. They bring in Jason McCourty. He was great. Kay left. Jamie Erdahl comes in. She's solid. So even when it was that transition and it was Jamie, Jason McCourty, Kyle, and Schrager, it was still a very good show. Now you never know who's going to be on. It's a cast of characters, to say the least. And what pains me about it is I loved the show from day one. I was their biggest fan from day one. And it bums me out that the NFL didn't appreciate the show, didn't understand the loyalty of the audience to that show, didn't understand that they had a unique show, and never really cared. And when they made that decision to move to LA, the NFL media thought, okay, well, if none of them come, we'll put other people in. And it's changed a lot. And the sad part is Kyle is so immensely talented, and he's there with Jamie, who's very talented as well. And now I guess Manti Te'o is going to be a full-timer, but clearly they're going to just put a million people in there and just rotate things. The question comes in mentioning a replacement for Schrager. I don't even know if they're going to replace a guy like Schrager. Schrager's very unique in that he's an information guy. He's not an ex-player. I think I'll throw this out there just for shits and giggles. I think what could be interesting is Tony Reale is out there looking for a job. We know Around the Horn has ended. Could Tony be a panelist on Good Morning Football? He has that personality. He knows how to do studio. Is he an NFL guy? Will NFL fans respect his takes and opinion? We don't know him as just an NFL guy, but that's a name. That's someone with some popularity. But I almost feel like the NFL doesn't want that. I feel like the NFL just wants a bunch of ex-players, along with Jamie and Kyle. And I don't know. To me, the ex-player is, I'd rather see someone like Kyle and Peter who've never played. Maybe I'm in the minority, but the ex-player is always going to protect the player, always. So, those are not the people I love. I mean, listen, Jason McCourty and Nate were great on that show. You need someone who's going to push the envelope a little bit. Ex-players usually don't push the envelope, so it's a tough role to fill. But again, Kyle, to me, the show's worth watching for Kyle because I really like the way Kyle does things. I like his takes. I like the way he's not just flying off the handle, and I think he's very talented. So, the NFL season comes along. Obviously, we're talking about this now. It's June 11th, June 12th, June 13th. Yeah, I mean, is there this burning desire that you need to have a Good Morning Football on at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning now? No, but when the football season starts, like that's going to be the first place I go to in the morning, most likely, especially on a Monday, on a Friday. So we'll see what happens with the cast. But I just, it's sad to me the NFL didn't appreciate what they had there, and it's sad that um, Kyle sort of gets shafted in this whole thing because he's still there, the only original left, and you can make the case he's been the best one on the show, or him and Peter. So that's with that situation. All right, this is Jay Bushmaker. For your opening on the podcast, is the pause between Right Here, Right Now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina an homage to Pat Summerall and Murder, She Wrote? It's a great question because that clip it's an NFL Films clip. It's on YouTube. It's of John Madden talking about how Pat Summerall would always have a pause with Murder, She Wrote when he was doing the promos for the CBS NFL game on Sundays. And then he did one famously for Gone with the Wind where Pat said, and coming up after 60 minutes, Gone with the Wind. And Madden talks about how he laughed so hard he had to leave the booth. That had nothing to do with how I do the Right Here, Right Now. It just started naturally. And I definitely got that from somewhere. And when I saw this question, I was thinking about it. I really can't remember, but there is a place where there's something I watched where they did a pause. It wasn't that. It was something else. And I've got to keep thinking about it. Hopefully I'll have an answer for you soon because I don't remember, which is scary, but I know I've definitely stole that from somewhere, but it wasn't Summerall. All right. This is Lisa Audi. Been a while since you've had a female sports voice on. Any reason? Lots of talented women that can talk football, NBA, WNBA. Bad luck. There is no reason. I mean, the reason is I don't book the show saying I need to have a woman on this week. I book the show saying who's in the news this week, who would people want to hear from this week. So if you just take recent episodes, last week, for example, I had Richard Jefferson on. Now, maybe you say, okay, well, why didn't you have Doris on instead of Richard Jefferson if you want to say that I haven't had a female sports voice on? I've had Doris on, but this was Richard Jefferson's first NBA Finals. Doris already called the NBA Finals last year. So the angle of Richard Jefferson calling his first NBA Finals is why I booked Richard Jefferson. And then recent guests, I'm just looking at Tony Reali. Obviously, that was the week around the Horn ended, so that's why he was on. Chris Berman just signed his deal that would get him 50 years on ESPN. And there was a request that came in sort of like, do you want to have Chris Berman on? He'd like to come on. So that's why I did that. John Tesh, they brought Round Ball Rock back to NBC. So I had him on the week that happened. So a lot of times I try to have it be newsy. Now, obviously you're going to say, okay, well, and why don't you have a woman on the news? I'll address that. But let me also just say one other thing too about sort of the lack of females, I guess. The other thing that makes it tough is at least once a month, minimum once a month, I try to have on one of the people who cover sports media. So that rotation is Andrew Marchand, Brian Curtis, Richard Deitch, John Oran. There isn't a woman who covers sports media in that vein. I wish there were, because if there were, I'd have more guest options and I would have them on in a heartbeat. But the people who cover sports media, and I'm talking about the people who break all the news in sports media or are the most recognizable who cover sports media, it's really those four. It's Marchand, it's Oran, it's Richard Deitch, Brian Curtis. And there's a couple of others out there too that do it, but it's all men. So that's another reason. And then let me just see here. Lots of talented women that can talk football, NBA, WNBA, bad luck. I don't cover the NBA. I don't watch the NBA, so that eliminates that. Don't really talk about it outside of like Caitlin Clark ratings. In terms of football, I'll say this. I think like 99% of the women in the NFL world are sideline reporters. I don't really have sideline reporters on for any sport. I mean, I know like Erin's been on, Erin Andrews, but I don't have sideline reporters on usually. I'm trying to think of others. If like Jared Greenberg from TNT, I haven't had him on. the guy on CBS with the great hair. I'm trying to think of his name. Evan Washburn. I haven't had him on. The sideline reporter is not someone I usually have on. So that's that. I will say this. If there are any women you think I should have on, you should let me know. And I've had, all of the ones in prominent roles, Malika Andrews, Katie Nolan, Linda Cohen, Molly Kiram, Susan Waldman, Erin Andrews. They've all, I mentioned Kay Adams earlier, Jamel Hill. They've all been on. So if there's someone you think who I haven't had on or I should have on, please let me know. And if it's a timing thing, I will say there were a couple over the years I've tried to get and I was unsuccessful. The woman I wanted to get on the podcast the most, I haven't tried in a while, but I did try at one point, was Robin Roberts, because she's one of the SportsCenter OGs, one of the ESPN OGs, and then has this career now at Good Morning America. But I think I got a no when I asked for that one. And there is one woman I should absolutely have had on by now and have not. And I don't want to say who it is. I wanted to get her on, and the week before she was on one of the other pods, whether I don't know if it was Deitch or Marchand. So then I didn't ask. But I will absolutely try to get that person on the pod. But there's one obvious one I should have had on. Will do my best to have on. And let me know. Again, though, if it's someone from the WNBA or NASCAR or the NHL, like I can't do that interview. So that's a big part of that. All right. Let's see here. Coin Donkey. Why is the NBA trying to, quote, take inspiration from the NHL with the All-Star game format? It's not like the NHL ratings were that good, and the NBA players don't really want to actually try. They just want to enjoy the festivities. I don't get the issue. I'm going to give you a really short and sweet answer for this. Don't get worked up about any all-star game, exhibition game, fake game that means nothing. It's not. The NHL all-star game, NBA all-star, they mean nothing. There's nothing on the line. They're fake games. So don't get worked up about it. Just ignore it. All right. AEM 2022, what are your sources telling you on the odds of Amazon or NBC signing Brian Windhorst away from ESPN? I don't know. All I know about this is that Windhorst's contract with ESPN is up sometimes this summer. You would think Amazon and NBC would make a big run at him. Would ESPN try to keep him? Yes, but I think it would be to a point. They have Shams and other people there on the NBA beat. I think losing Windhorst would hurt them a little bit, though. I think he's very, very good at what he does. I will say this. I probably don't write or talk about Windhorst enough. I think he's phenomenal television. I love the way he does his analysis. Obviously, went viral that one time with the trade there with Minnesota. I'm a big Brian Windhorst fan. I think he's great television. I think Amazon or NBC should absolutely do whatever they can to hire him. If you're ESPN, though, like I said, you have Shams, you have some other people on the NBA beat who do a really good job. So it wouldn't be like a crushing blow. It would get a lot of play on social media when he left. But listen, is he the number one guy at ESPN? Probably not. You would say when it comes to the NBA, it's Shams. So if you're Windhorst, maybe you want to go to Amazon or NBC. I will say this. You go to Amazon, though, you're going to no man's land because you can't compare being on Amazon to ESPN. NBC is a different story. So I think that'll be a very interesting story to see how that plays out over the summer when his contract is up. All right. Hidden Chone, where are you on The Wire? I've gotten a lot of this lately because I talked about on the podcast how I started The Wire. I watched season 1. I started season 2. I haven't been back to it in a while. Just, with the NBA playoffs at night, all those games, it's hard to squeeze it in. Now the weather's nice, so I want to be outside a lot, but maybe that means I'll watch it. I tell you, I wish you could watch the iPad on the beach, but I can't see the screen. I've said this before. There needs to be an invention where I can watch shows at the beach and be able to see the iPad, but I can't see the screen. I can't even see my phone. But I have to get back to The Wire. I've done a bad job with it. I know all of you are disappointed. I don't blame you. It's a bad job by me, but I'm still stuck in the early part of season 2. All right. At Mets game, when does Greg Olsen replace Herb Street on Amazon and who will replace Al? I really thought Olsen was going to replace Herb Street because it was the one main job out there, but I didn't realize Herb Street signed a 5-year deal when Amazon got the NFL, not a 3-year deal. So Herb Street is on for another 2 years no matter what. I mean, unless Amazon wants to fire him and pay him off, which they won't do. And Al signed the 3-year deal, Al Michaels. So Herb Street, when Amazon came aboard, signed a 5-year contract. Al Michaels signed a 3-year contract. Al's contract was up. They're bringing him back for this year. I think they're going on a year-to-year basis now. Could I see Olsen going to Amazon in 2 years when Herb Street's contract is up? Sure. Could I see Brady maybe getting tired of becoming remaining an analyst, and Fox telling Olsen, just sit tight. When Tom goes, we'll get you in there. Yes, but Tom does have a 10-year contract, and he said he's going to fulfill it. Romo's been at CBS for a while. Could he maybe have had enough, and then Olsen goes there? Maybe. NBC just signed Collinsworth, so that's not happening. So, and obviously, ESPN's not breaking up Joe and Troy. So, for now, I think Olsen's got to just sit tight for a little bit. It's a bummer. I thought Amazon would absolutely get him, but when I knew Al signed the 3-year contract, I had assumed Herb Street signed a 3-year contract, but it was a 5-year contract. So, I could see a situation. I think the Herb Street thing will depend on Al Michaels. Like if Al Michaels is only doing this year, let's say, and doesn't do the 5th year, maybe Amazon pays off Herb Street and they bring in a whole new booth. You know, Iron Eagle's going to Amazon, so maybe it's Iron Eagle and Greg Olsen, and they get rid of Herb Street a year early, or maybe they wait the 2 years, give Al that. Maybe Al does another year after this year, and then maybe in that 5th year, after the 5th year, I should say, Amazon turns to Ian and Olsen to be the Thursday Night Football team. But again, you don't know in 2 years what happens with the other network. So Olsen's in a really tough spot. I feel for him on that. Sorry, I had to take a swig of water. All right, at TJ Ramsey 44. What year did media, sports TV shows, TV, movies, and music peak for you? Listen, if you ever asked me this question my entire life, I would always say the 80s. But you can make it the argument 90s. I'm not giving you the aughts. It's either the 80s or the 90s. I have more of an appreciation for the 80s. If you said 90s, I would not have any beef with that. I will say, I think movies and music, probably 80s. Sports, probably 90s. And the TV, that's a tough one. Probably the 90s. HBO in the 90s had so much stuff. They did in the 80s too, but really in the 90s. So I'd have to split it up that way. For me, the music and the movies of the 80s is the clear winner. And I'd give you sports shows and TV for the 90s. But if I had to pick one, I'd say 80s. The other decades don't get any consideration. All right. At Mongo Nation, do you think MLB will end up crawling back to ESPN? They have enough packages, Apple TV, Roku, that no one watches. Hope they aren't stupid enough to do Sunday Night Baseball and the Home Run Derby too. They should at least find a linear TV partner for the wild card games, though. 100% agree about getting a linear partner for the wild card games. I have a feeling, though, those wild card games are going to end up on Peacock if NBC gets the deal. I will say that. Do I think MLB should crawl back to ESPN? Absolutely, 100%. If you're a sports league, you want to be in business with ESPN. That's just a fact. ESPN will cover you more, dedicate more time to your sport. And that's where everyone goes still. Everyone still goes to ESPN. I mean, like we used the example, the NBA Finals. Everyone thought the NBA Finals was on. Everyone goes to that ABC, ESPN. That's where you want to be. So if I was MLB, I would absolutely go crawling back to ESPN, and I would do anything I can to get every wild card game on linear TV. ESPN can do it because they have ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, ESPN News. Just put all the ABC, put all the games there. If ESPN makes that deal for the Sunday night package and the wild card games with NBC, I guarantee you NBC will put most of the wild card games on Peacock, and they'll throw a couple on NBC. And baseball's already got major problems with Apple TV and Roku. All right. Well, we'll stay with MLB. Bray MB1. How would you fix MLB national TV? It needs more weekly nights on national TV, I think, and better national announcers. I agree with the better national announcers. We saw that in the playoffs last year. There's no voice of baseball right now. It's a big problem. Joe Buck was the voice of baseball for so long. There is not a voice of Major League Baseball, and it's a problem. In terms of fixing it weeknights, national TV, I think it's very difficult to get people invested in a regular season baseball game across the country. Baseball has become a localized sport. Now, ESPN and Fox have had major success the last few weeks on Saturday, Sunday, because they've put the Yankees and Dodgers and Mets and just rotated those three teams, and Red Sox rotated those teams, and they've gotten their best ratings, I think, in like 7 or 8 years. So, listen, if you put a Yankee Dodger game or a Met Red Sox game on ABC or CBS or NBC or Fox on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, yeah, you might get a nice little bump. But again, you're going to have weeks where it's the Twins and Royals, and it's just not going to happen. So I think here's an idea I would like to see. We live in this world now post-COVID where so many people work from home, whether it's full-time or, part-time. There's a lot of hybrid. Everyone now has phones, iPads, laptops. I would love to see a national baseball game during the week. Maybe you want to make it, you want to make it 1 o'clock for the East Coast or 4 o'clock. You maybe do 4 o'clock, which you get the East Coast and the West Coast. Let's say it's Fox or NBC. And I think that is a way to be different than all the other sports. No other sport is giving you weekday national games. I think that is something I'd love to see baseball try and see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but try it. All right, we got a couple of wrestling questions here. I'm going to save those for the end. I'm going to go over to Instagram now because I got some Instagram questions, and then we'll wrap it up with a couple of wrestling questions that I got. Andrew Stolowitz from Instagram says, any plans for an upcoming sports media roundtable? Lots to talk about. It sort of goes back to what I talked about a little earlier. I try to rotate the 4 people I mentioned, Marshan, Deitch, Curtis, and Oran. And I don't want to ask them to just keep coming on. So that's why I sort of haven't done roundtables, and I've kept it to just one person at a time. Plus, I have a big ego, and I want to get my opinions in there and not just, my guests. So sadly, I'm not really kidding. But if you guys want roundtables, let me know. I can try to do them every now and again. I just don't want to keep harassing those guys to come on. But if you guys have 2 voices on along with myself, let me know, and I would have no problem considering it. Gary Clifford in STA. Who's your favorite late night host of all time, and rank them top 3? So I would have to say the easy choice for me, number 1, is Letterman. And I watched Letterman when he was on 12:30 on NBC. And I remember I was very lucky as a kid. I never had like not a curfew, a bedtime. I don't know. My parents must not have been great parents because they let me stay up till whenever I wanted, even as a kid. And I remember I probably was in middle school at the time watching David Letterman at 12:30 throwing the watermelons out the window and was like, what is this? I can't stop watching it. And then obviously he went to CBS, had a great run there, and was just unique. The other guys, I mean, Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon, they're painful. They're just so painful. Letterman was unique, witty, quick, self-deprecating. And I'll go through runs on YouTube where I'll watch old interviews he did with the guests who are on, he's legendary interviews with like Julia Roberts where they're flirting all the time and stuff like that. So I've always been a Letterman guy, always will be. So that's an easy number 1. For me personally, number 2 is Arsenio Hall. Just because Arsenio came on when I was in high school and was so different than every other late night show with the band, the way he came out. And I watched Arsenio. And here was Arsenio, when he was on, started at 11 p.m. All the other shows would start at 11:30. So he got the jump on everyone. And I just remember when I was in high school, I watched Arsenio every single night. I thought his show was fantastic. So for me, it would be Arsenio number 2. And then number 3, I have to put Johnny Carson at number 3. I was very young, obviously, when Johnny was on, but he's Johnny Carson. Like, when you have these lists, you can't try to be cute and like not put if you're talking about the greatest baseball player of all time, you don't leave off Babe Ruth. Like, you've got to put Johnny Carson on the list. And I did like Johnny Carson's show. So that would be number 3 for me. But Letterman was my guy always, and I loved Arsenio he wasn't on for long, Arsenio. I mean, maybe 3-4 years, but I absolutely love those years. I think, who can we get on the podcast first? Your dad or Sal's wife? Probably my dad. I don't want to have Sal's wife on and cause any commotion. Somebody asked me the worst major league ballpark. It's hard for me to answer that because I haven't been to new parks in a while. But I hate the new Yankee Stadium, so I'll give you that one. I mean, I guess a lot of it is because I'm comparing it to the old Yankee Stadium. But it's like a museum. It's not a ballpark. And when they did that nonsense about the moat and they wouldn't let people, go down. I mean, I've heard maybe that's changed, but like before the game, you're not allowed to get close to the field. The question came from 4 Medlin. What MLB ballpark is most overrated? Like I said, I hate the new Yankee Stadium. And it's strictly in comparison to the old one. Just no feel, not the same buzz. So it's a bummer. All right. 2 wrestling questions here to wrap it up. I love M. Francesa. How bad has this Cena heel run been? It's been very bad. I have not bought John Cena as a heel for one split second. I thought they ruined the entire thing when Travis Scott helped him win at WrestleMania. And then they made that whole big stink where Cena turned heel for The Rock, and then The Rock disappeared, and we haven't seen him since. So the storyline has been not good. Cena is impossible to believe as a heel. Travis Scott was an embarrassment. We know at some point they got to get the belt off Cena and he's got to turn face. So I think it's been a disaster. That's just me. Seth J33, thoughts on the R-Truth situation. And then we also got someone on Instagram chimed in with a R-Truth question as well. Need your thoughts on Ron Killings. That's G Stelts 55 on Instagram. Love this entire thing, except the fan reaction. Let me explain. So R-Truth puts out a statement a week ago. Well, it's more than a week ago now. I've been released by WWE. There's outcry. Fans want him back. They're chanting, bring back R-Truth or R-Truth at events. And then a week later at the pay-per-view Money in the Bank, R-Truth comes out as a surprise and interferes in John Cena's match. The crowd goes apeshit. Everyone's happy. It's great. Nobody knew it was coming. It was a big surprise. In wrestling, it's impossible to get surprises, so it worked out perfectly. And then there was all this, and maybe this is a social media thing, and I shouldn't pay too much attention to it, but there's all this, like, did Triple H lie? Was he really released? Was he not released? Was it a work? Was it a shoot? And I'm just like, I don't care either way. I was naturally surprised by something that happened in the WWE. Again, very hard to do with the internet. Everything leaks. And if it was a work, good for them. They did it well. If it was a shoot, good for them for bringing him back and getting this whole situation fixed and making the fans happy and giving everyone a thrill with him coming out at the main event of John Cena. So my thoughts are, I think this has been great for the WWE. I think it's been fascinating to follow, fascinating to watch. I give the WWE credit for pulling off a surprise, and I don't care if it's a work or a shoot. It entertained me. That's what I think. I wrote this. I actually think this is the biggest, is this a work or shoot thing in wrestling since the Montreal Screwjob, because people are arguing this is the way it happened. Triple H lied. They asked Triple H, was it a work or a shoot? He said, just enjoy the show. Are you enjoying the show? Why? Good for him. He doesn't have to answer that question. So the fan reaction to it's been ridiculous, but I think it's been great to watch, and I've enjoyed it. So that's it. All right. Those are all your questions. I appreciated all of them. They were great. And I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate the support. And, I said it a couple of times throughout this pod. If there's someone you want me to have on, something you want me to do, I'm very easy to find. My email address is out there on my Twitter account. You could email me through the column. You could tweet me. You could message me on Instagram, and I'll take any and all suggestions. And that's it.